production linked incentive scheme served its purpose in the last 5 years? So this is one of the major questions. Am I audible to everyone? I think there was a voice issue briefly. Let me just check once. So yes, now it seems to be working fine. So has the production linked incentive scheme served its purpose? That is one of the main questions of the day that we are going to see in today's news analysis. A mains question related to this has already been posted on your Telegram channel. You can check it out and try attempting the answer on the basis of the explanation that we are going to see in today's news analysis. Then, duplicate voter ID numbers, national electoral rolls, voter purification and authentication record. That scheme was launched by the Election Commission of India and by the Ministry of Law, under whom the Election Commission of India comes way back in 2015. But because of right to privacy judgment of the Supreme Court, that could not take effect, because Supreme Court said that you cannot make it mandatory for the voter ID cards to be linked with the electoral rolls. So many a political parties, many a times, especially when they lose on the election front, they accuse the Election Commission of duplicate voter ID cards, etc. So today's this news clipping we are going to see. First of all, we are going to talk about this PLI scheme also, and then what is happening in Israel Gaza Strip, what is happening in between the Israel and Gaza Strip, how Egypt and Saudi Arabia have accused Israel of using the humanitarian aid as a weapon of war. This is against the well laid out principles of United Nations, well laid out principles of human rights, that in case of any war, especially when you are talking about ceasefire, how can you use humanitarian aid, food and civil supplies as the weapon to extort the advantage, to extort the results in your favor. So this is what Israel is doing. Benjamin Netanyahu is hell-bent on making Palestine, making Gaza Strip leader, making Hamas agree to its conditions, pending which it will not release the aid for Gaza Strip people. Okay, already 48,000 people have died, and we are looking forward to a durable peace deal aided by Donald Trump, aided by the US president. But when the US president himself says that Israel, this Palestine area, East Jerusalem, etc., can be a good site for development, we can agree that that Donald Trump is a real estate developer looking at his businessman background. But can this serious issue be looked upon as a development site only? There are religious sentiments, and these type of statements are polarizing the Middle East countries into pro-Arabic countries and anti-Arabic countries. More on this at the relevant news clipping. Let's get started. So, these are the other news articles. Employability increasing according to Niti Aayog member, but only the ones who are with the fixed salary. The ones with the technical employable skills are seeing an increase in their salary, but the ones with the fixed salary component are not able to see an appreciable increase in their salary commensurate with the inflation. This is what the Niti Aayog member Arvind Varmani sir is saying. So we are going to talk about this, as I've already explained you about Israel Gaza briefly. So we'll see more on the relevant news clipping. UK and other countries infuriated at the showdown between Donald Trump and Ukraine President Zelensky. So they are now coming to the aid of Ukraine. They are now saying that we'll fight it out against Russia insofar as saving Ukraine is concerned. So we are going to see holistically as to what has Russia lost all these 2-3 years and what has Ukraine lost. With 20% of its territory, Ukraine's territory, already in the possession of Russia, who has actually lost and won the war, right, if it has concluded. So we are going to see this. Now, these are the news articles. Quickly have a look at them. We are going to see all of them. National Electoral Rolls Purification and Authentication Program. Okay, so how to authenticate our electoral rolls? Is right to vote a fundamental right? Is right to vote a constitutional right, or is it a mere legal right? Please answer with the relevant article. If not article, please answer this question quickly. Okay, this question has already been asked in the UPSC prelims also, and it unfurled a lot of feathers when this question was asked. Okay, I can see a very good names in the morning, coffee and aspirations. Looking forward to tea and aspirations also, and then UPSC and aspirations also. Okay, so moving further, some new names in the comment section. That is a good thing, but many people, what they do is they are not able to keep up with the newspaper reading. The simplest of the exercises, I can say, easy to remove same voter ID numbers across the states. A set of data has been produced before Election Commission of India that same electoral numbers, same electoral voter ID card numbers have been found across various states. Even though the name of the voter is something else, his particulars, his residence, his state is different from the voter ID card number. How can the voter ID card number across different states, across different voters be the same, despite so much of money being spent on cleansing of electoral rolls? Right? Purification, authentication, so many acronyms we have used all these years, but still the problem lingers on. Okay, not to blame ECI entirely, we can't blame Election Commission of India entirely when we see the influx of people from the likes of Myanmar, when we see the influx of people from Bhutan, Bangladesh, okay, open borders from Nepal, between Nepal and India. So this is the problem: how to identify citizens, how to identify the population, and how to reconcile the data. On the top of it, we have internal migration, intra-country migration, that compounds the problem for Election Commission of India. That begs another question, sir. What is the question? The question is, should the electoral rolls be linked with the Aadhaar card data? Okay, right to privacy judgment kicks in here. 2015. This program was started with with a lot of fanfare, that why not link this thing, okay, for the purification of electoral rolls and authentication. Okay, so to weed out this kind of a phenomena, a single voter voting multiple times, okay, indelible ink is the only recourse Election Commission of India has, and crores of rupees are spent on that as well every time an election happens. So this is the problem. To identify, to to curtail this problem or to eradicate this problem completely, what the Election Commission is now doing is they have now set up another portal. We are in the age of so many portals. If you have any problem, the fanciful word for the government has become is to come out with a portal to identify the problem, to launch an application. So one such application or portal is this one, Aeronet. Okay, so what this portal will do is, it will help the election machinery, it will help the working officials of Election Commission, those on deputation and on permanency. So what they will do is, they will upload the details. They will upload the data of state, for example Punjab, and overlap that data with the data of voters of Delhi. That will identify the fake numbers or duplicate numbers. Okay, if a voter, even if he is residing in one state and has got a voter ID card of 3 states, he would still be able to vote in one state only. This is what the Election Commission of India says. This portal is going to help the election officials to identify and weed out such duplicate numbers. So note down this portal, Aeronet. Sometimes the very simple question that UPSC asks is, what is the Aeronet portal related to? Right? It is the portal for identification of illegal immigrants. Likewise, the question can be framed. So this is an easy thing to handle all the processes pertaining to the registration and migration. Clear? So this is there. Now, coming to the other aspects of this news clipping today, Aeronet platform you have to memorize. Okay, this resulted in certain states and UT CEO offices using the same EPIC alphanumeric series. Okay, so your voter ID card number is 10-digit number, so alphanumeric it is. So this is how they are searching on the Aeronet portal if an ID number is existing in duplication. So that is a simple news here. Another thing is, what are the problems in making Aadhaar mandatory? So these are the pros and cons of it. First thing, the errors in the Aadhaar database, however minuscule they would be, however, let's say 1% error is there, Aadhaar database itself is having multiple errors. We have been talking about it in the past also, right? So if we will superimpose or if we link the Aadhaar data, there is no guarantee that these voters will be weeded out. Fake voters, bogus voting, etc., even though it has been weeded out to a great extent, but whatever is left, can that be taken care of by the linkage of voter ID card with the Aadhaar card? Okay, you also, many of your family members would be having at least to voter ID cards. So considering the span that elections in India happen across 28 days sometimes, the general election to Lok Sabha, 14 to 15 days, spread across various phases. So if I'm living in Delhi, being a resident of Chandigarh, having a voter ID card of Chandigarh also, it is not legal, okay, having two ID cards. So this is just an example. On 1st of March, let's say I vote in Delhi, and on 7th of March I'm in Punjab. By the time indelible ink is gone, can I cast my vote twice? Yes, I can. Right. Illegally I can, but legally this is not right. So this type of a problem has been highlighted by the losers. The ones, the political parties, the candidates who lose out in the elections to their competitors, they highlight this problem. Right. Even though it is not that big a problem. So in the light of this, answer some factual questions. Is the expenditure of Election Commission of India charged on the Consolidated Fund of India or not? Simple question I'm asking you. Okay. So updation of voter ID cards, etc. This entry is given in which list? Union list, state list, or concurrent list? These two questions, very simple questions, you can answer on the basis of whatever knowledge you have accumulated, right? Now, while linkage is to happen at the back end, second problem is Aadhaar is only a proof of residence. Aadhaar is not a proof of citizens. You must have come across many Nepali people, or you must have heard various stories that people from Nepal, people from Bangladesh, Myanmar, Maldives, Sri Lanka, they have Aadhaar cards. So Aadhaar is just a proof of residence. It is not a proof of citizenship. So the data of residentship being linked up with the data for citizenship through the Aadhaar card, the voter ID card, is it not going to compound the problem? Right. So this may not be as helpful as it is propagated to be. Then the danger is profiling of voters. So which voter is casting the vote, even though Aadhaar card linkage will just be mentioning the number of Aadhaar card, one's Aadhaar card at the back of one's voter ID card. But this might lead to a case of profiling in the future, right? Finally, while linkage is to happen at the back end, and mere mention of Aadhaar number on one's electoral photo ID card, EPIC, may not itself be a violation of right to privacy. This is the danger that Supreme Court had highlighted. Okay, so it may not be a problem, but you see here that profiling, if at all any government has made up its mind, like we see the co-optation of Election Commission, right? The members are appointed by the government, and Supreme Court has strangely now put the hearing on hold. Whether the members of ECI, Chief Election Commissioner, should it be appointed by a body predominantly by a select committee, predominantly membered by the government of India, right? Leader of opposition being one odd one out. So 3-member committee excluding CJI now, and its place, who's been appointed? Cabinet Minister. So a select committee headed by Prime Minister, membered by one of the cabinet ministers, and then opposition leader. So this type of a committee appointing Election Commission of India members and then mandating voter ID cards to be linked with Aadhaar card runs a lot of danger to our democracy. Okay, it's not that dangers should be converted into actual happenings, but the dangers, the cloud of the dangers, the profiling of voters, it's itself enough a reason for the Election Commission to not to use this, for the Supreme Court to declare it as against the principle of Aadhaar judgment. Right. In Aadhaar judgment, section 57 of Aadhaar Act was declared to be void, invalid, on the grounds that Aadhaar cannot be made mandatory for non-essential services. Okay, right to vote, it's a right. What type of a right? That is my third question to you related to this clipping. Moving further, this is the question here. Okay, so you should remember the notes part. What is the name of the program launched by Election Commission of India? It is National Electoral Rolls Purification and Authentication Program, NIRPAP. Okay, in Hindi it becomes free of all the sins, if you translate it. Okay, so the electoral rolls should be free of all the errors. Literally it means this. But to memorize this, National Electoral Rolls Purification and Authentication Program. Okay, so one thing is this. Then second thing is Aeronet platform, portal that has been created. So this is there. Now, moving further, PLI, running for Production Linked Incentive Scheme, running for last 5 years now, has at least helped the government of India pivot the direction. You understand the meaning of pivot? Pivot is basically, earlier we were groping in dark as to how to increase the share of manufacturing, of the country India. That begs another question. What is the share of manufacturing in India's GDP? I have been repeating this through last 1 week, 2-3 times. Now is the turn for you to answer this. So what are we trying to do is we want to increase the share of manufacturing in the country. How to go about it? So how to go about it is, the answer is pretty simple here, that we need to have some incentives for people in India, for manufacturing facilities in India, that in case they produce more, either to increase the domestic consumption, either to wean off, or either to reduce the India's dependency on Samsung TVs from South Korea. Okay, let's say we are importing these TV panels. Can't we manufacture them in-house? Producer says that the market is not as large. Market is huge, but the people who are actually going to buy it, for the for the company manufacturing these panels to shift operations to India, the market has to be large enough. So it is not as lucrative a market for Samsung, which is based out of South Korea, because South Korea is having free trade agreements with so many countries. It is proper, it is good for South Korea, it is good for Samsung to operate out of South Korea and export the TVs from South Korean market to the rest of the world. For India to manufacture them in bulk quantities, for India to, attract Samsung over here, we need to cater to two things: domestic market, and then export market of, let's say, Africa, of, let's say, West Asia. Okay, so that is what India has been striving to achieve through production linked incentive scheme, which now covers 14 sectors. 14 sectors are there in the production linked incentive scheme. Okay, that are being covered. Talk about computer hardware, talk about electronic hardware, IT equipment, Wi-Fi devices, etc. We are highly dependent on China for these things. Now, to curtail this phenomena of $100 billion of trade deficit with China, we need to increase the share of manufacturing, so that at least we can cater to domestic requirement. So this is how in 2020, with this objective in mind, this production linked incentive scheme was launched. Having completed 4 or 5 years now, okay, so what is the result now? Should we come up with, based upon that result, should we come up with 2.0? This is what this news clipping talks about. Let's talk about it in detail quickly. So, production linked incentive scheme gaining traction in its first phase. PLI 1.0, more or less for 5 years, is complete now. So, what is the learning from here? Domestic value addition can be a criteria for PLI 2.0 to give incentives to those corporations, those companies, those enterprises which add value to the domestic products. Talk about semiconductors, talk about panels, integrated circuits, etc. Then incremental exports. What do we mean by this term incremental? Incremental means that if a company was earlier producing goods worth, let's say 50 crore rupees, okay, and it was exporting 25 crore rupees goods out of India, 25 crore exports. Now, should the exports be given on 25 crore rupees, or should the exports be given on the income, on the export income that is going to be above 25 crore rupees? Any increment, any increase above the base of 25 crore rupees, above the base of existing imports, should only be incentivized. Okay, so this is what the news says, that after 5 years of completion of production linked incentive scheme, we need to revise the criteria as to how we give the government subsidy incentives to those exporters, to those manufacturers. Okay, so one thing is, they need to cater, as I said, if this is India's map, they need to cater to what? They need to cater to the domestic requirement, plus they need to export items to the emerging markets. Okay, items to the markets like Africa, West Asia, or Southeast Asia here, right? So problems in export criteria is that we need to attract, this news clipping says that we need to attract overseas equipment manufacturers, OEMs. This term is quite in vogue, quite in fashion these days. OEMs, to attract OEMs, outside or overseas equipment manufacturers like Apple into India. Why would Apple set up its shop in India? Even though Apple has already set up a manufacturing plant, assembly plant. The BMW thing, the European Union free trade agreement thing we were talking about, you remember that? Okay, if any European car maker wants to set up a factory in India, what is the criteria? Is it only Indian market? No, Indian market is not as lucrative, even though we are a huge population. That too only for parleys. Okay, the low income kind of items, sunsilk, shampoo, or etc. The FMCG goods we are still capable of. Air conditioner is it's fine. Okay, but the criteria for any company manufacturer to set up the factory in India would be how lucrative is the India as a destination to cater to the remaining part of the market, remaining part of the world. Southeast Asian side, then on your western, on this West Asian side, and then the African side. So this can be a criteria. The problem is in the south. Now I'm adding my points here. RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. India had opted out of it in 2018, meaning thereby that if any TV, Samsung TV manufactured in India is exported to these countries, there will be 10-15% customs duty, tariffs as we call them. Okay, if these products are to be imported to European Union, barriers are there. What type of barriers? Trade barriers and non-trade barriers, tariff barriers and non-tariff barriers, carbon tax, carbon border adjustment mechanism. These type of problems are going to be there. Still, PLI has landed us in a good stead. The share of manufacturing, even though it is increasing at a snail's pace, it is still increasing. If we talk about the years from 2004 to 2014 or talk about 2004 to 2018, the share of manufacturing was not picking up at all, giving production linked incentives to the exporters, to the domestic manufacturers of those equipment which India is heavily reliant on China, right? For which India is heavily reliant on Southeast Asian countries like Philippines, Korea. You see Philips products, you see a lot of electronic household care items. We are dependent on those items on Philippines, Vietnam, South Korea, etc. So manufacturing these items in India will help us control our current account deficit, right? So that way our rupees value will also be gaining ground or will be increasing, leading us in a good position insofar as Indian economy is concerned. So here I have explained this clipping quickly. Let us go through the lines. So that coverage, I told you that 14 sectors as of now are covered. Okay, government has recently added 6 more sectors, including that it is 14 sectors. Okay, enabled the scale in manufacturing. Achievements are that PLI scheme has enabled us to achieve the economies of scale, has enabled the private companies which are manufacturing ACs. For example, let's talk about Hitachi, a company of Japan. Let's talk about Carrier AC, a company from outside India, right? So they are now manufacturing ACs for India in India itself to a great extent. At least they have started to assemble these products in India. This has increased the trade activity, right? Now, PLI limitations have been there, contributed to limited value addition. This is the problem, even though value addition has been there, but limited value addition. Created a directional pivot. What do we mean by pivot? A ship was moving in a certain direction, but now, having seen the benefit of PLI, the pivot, the direction we have got, okay, we have to move in this direction in order for India's exports to increase, in order for India's manufacturing capabilities to be increased. This is the pivot that the government of India, Ministry of Commerce has found. Through this PLI, okay, if we will go in this direction, at least we have got to know that we are moving in the right direction insofar as the objective of generation of employment is concerned, insofar as the objective of increasing exports is concerned, insofar as the objective of increasing manufacturing capabilities of India is concerned, right? Insofar as reducing the trade deficit with China is concerned, PLI scheme is the way to go. This is the meaning of directional pivot. Okay, now low percentage value addition across key sectors, single digit. value addition that has happened in terms of percentage, that is in a single digit, under 10 only, right? It should be 15%, 16%. So these are the limitations we have observed in the last 5 years of PLI scheme. Completion of 5 years is a huge step, right? We have seen so many road shows by Prime Minister. We have seen a lot of money being spent by Ministry of Commerce, etc. Need for deeper and broader manufacturing base. Deeper manufacturing base. Why do we need a deeper manufacturing base? We should be able to manufacture our own semiconductors, for which we are dependent on Taiwan, China, etc. So deeper manufacturing base would help the ecosystem for the proper industry to be set up in India. Okay. Otherwise, what will happen is India will just remain an assembly destination. You get in the raw material from various parts of the world and set up a assembly unit. The product will be assembled, spare parts would be brought in, and then it will be exported. That is not the real value addition. That doesn't make our supply chain resilient. Resilience of supply chain is important. Why is it important? Because in case of a COVID-like issue, COVID-like problem, in case of a China-India full-fledged war, anything might happen, right? So we should be self-reliant insofar as our export revenue is concerned, insofar as our domestic requirements are to be met. Got it? So this is the issue here. Now, PLI 2.0 and challenges. Goal is to leverage the gains from the first phase as an inflection point. What do we mean by inflection point here? Okay. Whatever goals we have achieved, whatever little things we have talked about, the benefits that we have talked about, those benefits should be so channelized, should be so taken that we do not fall from here. We should rather take it to a next level. This is the inflection point. How we proceed from here will decide how better we do. Inflection point, for example, if you are around 22, 23, okay, you are at the inflection point of your life. What you decide from now on will decide where you land up, will decide how you do in your life overall, right? So this is how, after the PLI phase 1, how do we proceed further will decide how India's manufacturing capabilities are developed. So this is their increasing localization of electronic manufacturing. Okay, so localization of electronics manufacturing to build a domestic ecosystem. We need to build a domestic ecosystem, as I explained, in order for having a resilient supply chain. Supply chain resilience has been the area of interest for UPSC in last few years, ever since COVID-19. India's relatively small market in sectors such as telecom and electronic products does not provide a sufficient incentive. Now you might wonder, sir, we have been talking about a lot of mobile phone users, etc. Okay, so here we are talking about how many people are able to actually buy OLED TVs, how many people are actually able to buy the high-end equipment, high-end air conditioners, etc. Right? So Indian market is not saturated, but the levels of income, if they plateau, if they stagnate at a point, right, we have been listening about unemployment, recession, etc., etc. These things make the companies which will set up their factory in India vulnerable to Indian market volatilities. So that is why any company which wants to come to India, would need India as a whole solution, kind of complete solution from length to breadth of the manufacturing setup. Then only Apple, Samsung, the TVs, the air conditioners, the car manufacturers that we talked about, then only they will move to India completely. Otherwise they won't. So this is the problem. Need for scale. They need a scale. Numbers should be 1 lakh car units sold every month, right? But you see, whether are we able to? No. Tata Nano project, even though it was quite fanciful, 1 lakh rupees ki car, but did it pick up? No. Why? Because actual buyers are pretty less. Talk about EVs. Ola has been struggling. Electric vehicles, even though the numbers month on month are quite good, but are they sustainable? That is doubtful, right? So attracting component and sub-component manufacturers into India, we need to attract these people. Negotiating competitive rates with semiconductor chip manufacturers will come only when large volume manufacturing is there. If you are importing these semiconductors from Taiwan, and if you are importing in not bulk quantity, then the competitiveness of exporters will be gone. We will just be assembly unit over here, right? We will just be assembling things in India. In order for us to emerge as a manufacturing hub, we need to deepen our manufacturing base. By deepening, we mean that outside or overseas equipment manufacturers should shift completely to India. They should manufacture in India for the rest of the world rather than just for India. Okay, what have we been trying in the first phase is we have been enabling the domestic companies to manufacture for India. This is limited. This is going to have limited gains. Why? Because Indian market is limited for us to gain discounts from Taiwan company. Okay, from Taiwan, for us to gain some discounts or bulk purchasing. Bulk purchasing will be possible only if we are manufacturing from India for India as well as for the rest of the world. And for that to happen, we need to attract outside equipment manufacturers into India. Done. So this is the crux of it. India's small domestic market necessitates access to export market. So writer says in the subsequent lines that so is what attracting outside overseas manufacturers into China is what China has done. Into South Korea is what South Korea has done in the initial phases of their manufacturing capability development phase. That is the way to go. Okay. Need for scale, large volume, all these things we have covered. Proposed solution, including exports as a metric. How many exports are they doing? So in the PLI 2.0, what is the quantum of exports can be another area. Okay. Addressing the small size and limited market access for domestic firms. Using foreign OEMs to mobilize large volumes and catalyze manufacturing at a scale. Foreign OEMs can help develop component manufacturing ecosystem. So these things are there. Historic precedents, they have cited the example of Japan, South Korea and China successfully using the foreign overseas equipment manufacturers to develop domestic industries. So in order for us to develop the domestic capabilities, first we learn from them the technology transfer. They will transfer the technology to our domestic industries. For example, if you see, earlier there used to be only one car company, Maruti. Maruti eventually trained our workers. Now, earlier Maruti only was able to service its cars. Okay, then came Tata Cars, Tata Motors. So Tata trained engineers. Gradually, we are a vibrant automobile spare part and servicing market, if not manufacturing. Why? When these big companies like Maruti, Tata, etc., they come to India, they set up a shop in India, gradually our workforce gets trained, right? And gradually we start manufacturing the same product in India. This is how the industry develops. The technical know-how from the big players needs to be transferred to India. Then only we would be able to manufacture ACs, TVs, OLEDs or LEDs, computers, semiconductors, etc. So this is the way to go for PLI 2.0. A question for the same regarding the same has been put on the Telegram channel. Okay, and a small announcement here. On Vishwas Divas, we had announced that I had told you that some big announcements will be there for your upcoming courses of UPSC. So Titan batch 4.0 2026 and various other batches for Hindi medium, English medium, they are being offered at 80%, up to 80% discount, the link of which is in the description box. Sorry for the break in the interregnum. Okay, this was an important announcement so as to back up my the affirmation, the claim that we will be coming up with huge discounts. So you should not say that, sir, you had said something but you are not backing up your commitment or words with something tangible. So here comes the after announcement effect of Vishwas Divas. So you can join the courses. I teach polity on this platform, okay, and various other courses as we proceed along. Some more courses maybe will be taken up by me. Now, for now here, including exports as a metric. So this is the PLI thing. So I told you we need to manufacture within India for the rest of the world. In PLI 2.0 phase, we can't just manufacture in India for India. That way we would not be able to have economies of scale. What do we mean by economies of scale? Economies of scale means manufacturing in bulk enables a manufacturer to bring down the cost of production. Okay, so sometimes these conceptual questions are also put in the exam. Now, outrage as Israel cuts off the aid to Gaza Strip. So, see the location here. Gaza Strip is located here. Okay, all the shipments, they are to be routed through the Mediterranean Sea. But when Israel puts a blockade here, not enabling even the neighboring country Egypt to supply any humanitarian aid to Gaza, people living in Gaza, so they starve. When they starve, Hamas group, which is running Gaza, which is administering Gaza, even though it is a quasi terrorist, quasi political group, Hamas is under pressure from its own people to strike a peace deal at whatever conditions being kept by Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu is resorting to this kind of a pressure tactics to extract a peace deal at its own terms. Even though under the pressure from Donald Trump in the month of January itself, before the Donald Trump actually officially took over the reins as the president of USA, this deal was struck. Okay, under the deal, first phase of the deal, the hostages held by the Hamas group from Israel, of Israeli people, they were to be released. 50% of them, half of them were to be released. Israel, Palestine, the Hamas group has already released them, living up to the condition. Now they are supposed to renew the deal. Phase 2 they have to talk about, but phase 2 hasn't yet been agreed upon. Egypt, being one of the main mediators, has called Israel as as an extortionist. Saudi Arabia is calling it as an extortionist. That how can you resort to this kind of a, how can you resort to using humanitarian aid as a weapon? Humanitarian aid, using it as a weapon, is against the norms of United Nations Council for Refugees, Human Rights Council. Okay, so this kind of a thing is being done. And when asked about what is the response of US on this step of Israel, on this declaration of Israel, US was silent. Even though Benjamin Netanyahu, an important ally, Israel, an important ally of USA, is saying that USA, the Donald Trump is principally on board with this step of stopping the humanitarian aid by Israel from Israel to Gaza. Israel is not supplying the aid. Aid is coming from other countries also. That aid is also being stopped. Now I ask you a question: where is Golan Height located? In which country is it located? Okay, what is the name of the sea or lake with the highest salt content in this area, in Israel or Palestine? Prelims oriented questions. Okay, so what countries border Mediterranean Sea? Where is Sinai Peninsula spread across? Can you answer these questions? You have to, because these questions, when asked in the examination, then we struggle as to how to answer them. Then lastly, recently we conducted an exercise with Egypt. What was the name of the exercise? Simple question. Only the questions that I'm asking. And I had also asked a question on the Telegram channel that shall we have a 10 minutes, 15 minutes daily current affairs quiz on YouTube, in which questions will be there on slide 1. Answers to those questions will be there on slide 2. Okay, so 10 to 15 minutes based upon our Hindu or Indian Express. Shall we have this current affairs quiz on a daily basis, sometimes in the evening, so that you also get to check your knowledge, right? Yes, answer these things. Okay, ceasefire deal we briefly talked about. Then coming to this Niti Aayog finding, an interesting finding. I'll quickly sum it up. See, what is happening is, one of the Niti Aayog member says that even though the wage rate for the non-permanent employees, non-permanent wagers is increasing, but the salaries of the permanent workforce, as per the periodic labor force survey data of 7 years, tells us that their salaries are not increasing. How can this happen? Apply your mind. This is happening, he says the simple reason is that they are not being skilled. Okay, people are not being skilled to the right extent. The main reason for wages not increasing as per inflation is the lack of skills. We are not hiring the skilled jobs. But what is the phenomena that he says that while the employment is increasing in India, real wages for regular jobs have not kept pace with inflation. This is the official data of Government of India. Niti Aayog is presenting it, so becomes important. Okay, India has an opportunity. We know about demographic opportunity, etc. Okay, but why this kind of a phenomena is happening? See, this report also mentions that the daily wages are still able to catch up the pace with the rate of inflation. That means if a daily wager, unsecured job worker, Swiggy, Zomato, his pace of salary, his pace of remuneration is still able to keep the pace with inflation to a great extent, unlike the permanent counterpart, permanent employee, his permanent peer. Why? Permanent workers are hired at a low wage so that they without updating their skills can continue. And daily wagers in the non technical segment, if they work more, they are able to get compensation which is more in terms of per unit delivery or per unit manufactured, right? So this is the problem. India has an opportunity in terms of global population, and there is a need to take advantage of it. For this, improving the quality of teaching and training is important. So this article is focusing upon teaching and training only. This was all in today's news analysis. We have covered the most important news articles of the day. Manufacturing, PLI scheme. Okay, what is happening in Israel, Gaza? Briefly, I'll tell you about the global happenings, but they are not as important. UK has sought to meddle into the Russia-Ukraine war after the after the verbal feud between Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Zelensky. Okay, so they fell out on the media, so in the front of the US media, that is viral across internet. You also must have come across a video showing how abusively is the president of the US talking to the president of Ukraine. Right, so that kind of a thing is now pushing the European Union countries, UK, France, to come together to the aid of this country, Ukraine, right? So what will happen? They will be able to at least help Ukraine fight it out in the maybe last, this phase of war between Russia and Ukraine. Do you think that Ukraine would be, with the help of European countries, be able to face Russia without American support? America has so far burnt around $380 billion. Okay, $1 billion is around 9,000 crore rupees, 8,500 crore rupees, pardon me, right? So this kind of a thing, can this be continued without the American aid? NATO is there, no doubt, but NATO forces were primarily being financed by US only. So that is the dilemma, that is the problem that world faces now. We were hoping that Russia Ukraine war would now end thanks to Donald Trump, but now another saga has started. US is being mean here. US says that to pay up for that $380 billion that Ukraine has been given by USA in terms of aid for Russia Ukraine war, Ukraine needs to compensate for that by signing up a deal with the US in terms of mineral areas of Ukraine to be given to the US. That's the problem. Okay, so this is like something Donald Trump as a businessman is doing. We talked about Palestine. In the Palestine, he says that Palestine can be a good development site, real estate development site for the future. How can the president of the US be so insensitive that he looks upon a religious site belonging to Arabs, okay, where the Arabs have their religions? How can he say that this kind of a thing? I mean, it can be a good real estate development site for tourism, etc. Right? Then coming to Russia-Ukraine war, asking Ukraine to pay up for the damages it has done to the US economy in terms of $380 billion that USA had given to Ukraine. So this kind of a condition has been kept. What Ukrainian president is expecting in return is just a security guarantee. That what is the guarantee? Let me take you to that news article quickly. What is the guarantee that if Ukraine sign a deal, Russia Ukraine sign a peace deal mediated by US, will US come to the rescue of Ukraine if in case Russia attacks Ukraine again? Okay, Donald Trump only had some verbal commitment that Russian president respects him. That's all he had to offer to Ukrainian president. So this is how the news article has been proliferating. Okay, this is the gist of it. We've covered pretty much of our news articles today. March is already in, so you have to make the plans for the month of March in order for you to not let it pass away like another, just like another month. Okay, so I gave you an important tip on the Telegram channel also yesterday, that rather than making 110% of your capability as your target for the month or for the week, have 90% as the target. Eventually you will see, when you achieve that target, you get that positivity, positive energy. Okay, yes, you have accomplished your target. That propels you, that motivates to you to do even more. This is how you increase your performance step by step, rather than getting disheartened by not achieving the target which you have set at 110%. Okay, don't be like Indian government or Indian economy. We have very good plans, but we are not able to execute them. Okay, so this is how you can gradually improve your performance. This is all for today. See you again tomorrow at around the same time. Until then, bye bye, guys. Thank you.